Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. We are coming to you this Thursday morning live from the CNBC TV 18 Moti Rosewal studios. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Reema, and we've got the birthday boy with us, Nigel. Guys, good morning. Nigel, very, very happy birthday to you.
Well, thanks a lot, Prashant, as well as Reema, and thanks to a lot of people who have wished on Twitter as well as on personal message this morning. And I'll tell you what, 10 years ago on Power Breakfast, Ekta said, Nigel, what do you wish for? I said, I want everything to go well personally as well as professionally. And 2024, here we are at 8 a.m. on CNBC TV 18. And I'll tell you what, the last 10 years have been fantastic, and I hope the next 10 are even better. So thank you, everyone, for your good wishes.
And I must say that Nigel is one of the most loved anchors and colleagues at CNBC TV 18. He's every single person's friend. He's out there. So here's wishing for the next decade to be as brilliant as the last decade has been, or even better. Wishing you the very best always.
Thanks a lot, guys. We have had a lot of good times and very few bad times or off times. So looking forward to building on this rapport. And when you work for so long in the channel, everyone's like
family.
Everyone's like family. From a bachelor to a someone who got married, who has children. You talk about everything, so...
What's the plan? Where's the party, though? That's later.
Promise
Not
lunch.
today.
Lunch is done.
All right. Well, so that's a special day for all of us here at CNBC TV 18. Well, it's going to be a special day or a mild and a sort of muted kind of day for markets. I think that's what we want to start with. And let's rewind the clock back to yesterday, because actually it's something very special happened last night in the US, the US markets, that is. So astounding recovery for the US equity markets. I'll tell you why. Because that's the close. S&P was up 1%, Nasdaq was up about 2% plus. US equities, the S&P was down about 1.6% early afternoon, morning and early afternoon. And then they saw a late bump, and a bump like we've not seen one since October of 2022. So actually, it's the first time since October 2022 that the S&P and the Nasdaq actually erased an intraday loss of over 1.5%. That basically is how powerful the bounce was, which essentially means that, you essentially from the day's low on the Nasdaq looking at about a 3.6, 3.7 kind of a bounce. Now, that's very large. You had NVIDIA to thank for it, not just for the Nasdaq, but for the S&P as well. It really drove gains. And you had the CEO of NVIDIA at a conference essentially talking about strong demand for their chips. Stock ended 8% higher. That's an outsized impact and a boost coming in for markets. Now, you also had macro data. So at the margin, US core CPI numbers sort of beat expectations, 0.28 month-on-month increase as compared to about a 0.2% bump. That was the consensus expectation. And by the way, after this data, actually it is off, I'm going backwards a little bit, but it's after this data that equities sold off, yields went up, but all of that reversed towards the end, as I already described. So yields, by the close of it, were up about 1 basis point, so 3.6%. Dollar index was up about 0.15%. 101.79 is where we left off at as well. Oil prices, 2% jump. So, oil's been the big talking point, but a little bit of a lift here. So nearly $70.50 per barrel is where we left off. Is the road clear for markets here in India? I think, you're still in a bit of a not clear kind of a picture phase right now. Very early to say whether we are starting something on the downside. It's possible that the market just moves right back up. So let me just put the levels which will make things clear. We closed below the 20-day moving average, which stands at 24,925. We left off at 24,918. So it's a very slight marginal close under the 20-day moving average. And I would say we should not presume that a fresh move sort of lower is starting until and unless you break the swing low of 24,753. Maybe it'll never come into contention. But that, I think, is the main level, only below which you can say that maybe we perhaps are going to see that pullback, which so many are talking about, right? 4-5%. Yesterday, we had somebody saying, 5% is a new 10% and things like that. But I don't think we should jump the gun yet. The high to take out is the high of the last 2 days. So 2 days now, the market's got to about 25,112, which is the 61.8% retracement from the all-time high, the fall that we saw from the all-time high. Above that, you're looking at 25,333, which is the last and the prior sort of high. Now, the Nifty Bank, it managed to remain above the 20-day moving average, which was 51,003. We left off at, all these numbers are a few points, a few points under the 20-day, few points above the 20-day. But that's the kind of market we're in. The recent low for the Bank Nifty is 50,369. On the upside, watch if the Bank Nifty can take out 51,506. I want to just leave you with this astounding number, which is the Bajaj Housing Finance IPO, which closed yesterday. And the numbers are, 3 lakh crores, right? That's the amount of money which the IPO has not collected. That's the demand. But the point which I think many are making, and I think it's a valid point, is that if all that money is blocked out for a day or 2 days, when that frees up, you got all that powder sitting on the sidelines, which is available. Not all of it will come and buy stocks in the secondary market, but you've got that blocked for a day or 2 days. And that, I think, also explained what we saw yesterday in terms of flows. FII is bought, DII is bought, but you still had the market which saw a bit of a dip. And I think maybe the missing link was the Bajaj Housing IPO, which we had yesterday. GIFT Nifty will come up on your screen. And I think, the first rates will indicate a 100-point plus kind of a bump. So the question is going to be, if you get that, do you chase this higher, or do you wait for at least the 25,112 kind of level to be taken out, and then you kind of go long, because it's a pretty sharp start that is being indicated. Rima.
Well, absolutely astounding, right? The Bajaj Housing Finance and the kind of subscription. So just to put it in numbers, the total subscription stands at 3.23 lakh crore. Record numbers. Even in terms of the total number of applications, it stands at 89 lakh applications seen for Bajaj Housing Finance. This is the highest ever seen for any IPO. And it was a large size IPO. They were looking to raise 6,500 crore plus, and it saw an overall subscription of 63 times. Remember, the entire Bajaj group has generated so much wealth for all the investors. So in the last 10 years, Bajaj Finance stock price is up 28 times. Bajaj Finserv is up 17 times. So, there is a lot of love towards the Bajaj group. In terms of the FIs, as Prashant said, the FIs bought in the cash market yesterday. They bought 1,755 crore rupees. This marks the third consecutive day that the FIs bought in the cash market. And yesterday, the DIIs too pumped in close to about 230 crores. So both FIs and DIIs were buyers in the cash market. Lots of things to track today. So we'll kickstart with the big block deal in Honasa Consumer, and it's been upsized from 8%. It now stands at 10%. 9 a.m. onwards, we'll be tracking the Paytm AGM. We've got a listing today, a small one, Sri Tirupati Balaji. They raised about 170 crore rupees via the IPO, but very solid subscription of 125 times. We've got the Nifty weekly expiry. It's a Thursday. We've got macro data to track at 5:30 p.m. The India July IIP and the August CPI. Out in the US, you've got the PPI Producer Price Index, and in the European zone, ECB interest rate decision, where a 25 basis points rate cut is expected. So after yesterday's turbulence this morning, the GIFT Nifty is suggesting a 100-point plus gap up closer to the 25,000 mark. What are you watching?
Well, that's right. Before I get to trade setup with regard to the Bajaj Housing IPO, 3 lakh crore plus is the demand, right? There are only 30 companies in India that have a market capitalization of more than 3 lakh crore. So that's the kind of number, just to give a comparative, since we're talking about 3 lakh crore odd. But yesterday was a weak session. Though it was a weak session, by the time we wound up, we protected the crucial levels both on the Nifty as well as on the Nifty Bank, which is the 20 DMA. So I expect, since this morning is going to be some green, you'll have to watch out for those technical levels and hope that you buy into the dip yet again. That's the call, and that's the trade that's worked out. We have the weekly expiry as well that plays out on the Nifty, so that'll be an important moving point in the second half of trade. What about positioning? How are the FIs positioned? What about clients? Well, the FIs, they continue to remain net long, 1.5 lakh contracts on the long side. And for the hygiene check, we normally just check out what both these two are doing. The clients, mildly net short, 40,000 contracts on the short side. Moving to the other FNOQs, well, yesterday you had the Nifty Bank that was lower. There appears there were some shorts that got built into the system, which isn't such a bad thing because the flows are good, valuations are supportive out there, and over the last 1 year, that's actually been an underperformer. So the Nifty Bank is the one that holds utmost importance, particularly from a bullish perspective, because that's what could swing the tide in their favor, provided the recent lows held out. We'll get to that number in just a bit. The PCR is moving back down towards the lower end of the range. A few sessions ago, it was at around 1.4. It's come down to around 0.88 odd. I like that. What about the options data? Well, the call writers, they're feeling very confident. But this morning, we're going to get a gap up. So the bulls will want to build onto those gains, because if you build onto those gains, then these call writers will have to scramble for cover. And if that's the case, then in fact you'll have to, you'll see the Nifty that moves up as well. So let's get the levels that come up for you on the screen right now. The resistance zone, well, that's the high that we made a couple of sessions ago before pulling back. The recent lows out there, so that'll be very, very important. And if we break that, then you look at the 50 DMA. So that 24,600 mark becomes extremely crucial on the downside. What about the Nifty Bank? The recent low is at around that 50,300 odd. You'll want it to build on and get past that 51,450 odd, which has been a bit of a resistance zone, and the highs come up for you on the screen. The stock that I'm looking at is PI Industries. Yesterday, before the market got a little bit turbulent, if you pull up the last chart year to date, you'll see that the stock actually has bounced back phenomenally. And you're getting some sales notes which are stating that the export data for the first 2 months of this quarter have been good, and the key product, pyrosulfone, well, that as well has been quite good. The stock yesterday pulled back towards the second half of trade, but since it's an uptrend, and in fact it hit a fresh 52-week high, that's a stock I think we need to track from here on as well.
All right, thanks very much, Nigel, for that. So PI Industry is something you need to keep a quick sort of look at as we open and track it through the course of the day. Eric Fishwick weighs in on equities this morning. He's, of course, with CLSA. He says U.S. inflation rose 0.2% month-on-month and 2.5% year-on-year for the month of August, in line with expectations. However, core CPI recorded a 0.3% month-on-month and 3.2% year-on-year increase, which was higher than expected. Price dynamics remain favorable, suggesting that inflation on a yearly basis will continue to fall going into the end of the year. But the higher than expected month-on-month increase in August is a further argument in favor of 25 basis point cut next week. They expect a 25 basis point cuts at each of the 3 Fed meetings this year. All right, well, we have Stephen Englander, Managing Director.